Okay, folks, here we go. The collection part 11, and I'm going to start with a very detailed and thorough history of England in the 17th century, melting, reaching out into the 18th century. Basically, the time from King James I's coronation to Queen Anne, Peace of Utrecht, and all that. Very detailed, great stuff, a lot of information and material, and very well written and well told. Maurice Ashley is an excellent historian of the 17th and 18th century, and he's this book, The Pelican History of England, is a really nice small volume, but it's densely packed. I mean, there's only 200 and around 250 pages, and you get everything: Charles II, the Dutch Wars, the Great Civil War, Cromwell, the beheading of Charles I. It's really an excellent work, well written, a lot of information, and it's pretty good. I highly recommend it. Next up is a book that kind of disappointed me. You look at the title, Anatomy of Revolution, The Anatomy of Revolution by Crane Brinton, and you think, oh, this is going to be a really excellent, history of, or basically an anatomy of how revolutions come about, the conditions that begin, that create the impetus for them. And really, it's marred by too much esoteric stuff that really has nothing to do with it. And again, it's not it. I mean, it strives to be entertaining, and in striving to be so, it misses out on a lot of. It elides a lot of information and basically, information that might be valuable that make you, construct an anatomy of revolution. So I would not recommend this book. It's not very well written. It's, and that's all I'm going to say about it. Next up is a classic, Ibn Fadlan, whatever. In the Land of Darkness. It's about Islamic travelers in the lands of the north, engaging with in Eastern Europe and in Russia, with the northern Khazars, the Vikings, and it's very interesting stuff. Stuff that most people don't even think about. In the Caspian Mountains, Caucasian Mountains, all that. They were all up in their trade and all that stuff. Really interesting stuff. Arab travelers in the far north. Yeah, and they run into those terrible and just irascible Vikings who are always causing trouble wherever they go. Okay, next up is an excellent book by Albert Cossery, French writer, Proud Beggars. And this is a murder. It's sort of a police detective work about a policeman who suspects a group of three guys who are may be involved in a murder, and it's pretty interesting how the police inspector kind of starts to become friends with the guys, and he loses touch with his investigation and his interest in the people that he's investigating. And it's a very good book. It's very well written. A lot of dark humor in it. Cossery is full of that. A lot of derision and satire. And it's very well written. Anything by Cossery is going to be good. Highly recommend this book. It's a slim volume. It's a very short novel, but it's densely packed with incidents and tableau and all that. I'm going to use some big words here. Okay, here's a great Aristophanes: The Wasps, The Poet and the Women. and the frogs. And of course, I would buy this alone if just the frogs was in it, because the frogs is basically a comics overview and making fun of the of the of the playwrights of his time. He doesn't touch Sophocles, but Euripides definitely catches a beating in this, but it's in good fun. And much like the Clouds mocked Socrates, and Socrates enjoyed it, and even there's an old anecdote about him standing up in the crowd and waving, going, "Yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. A great job." So Aristophanes is incredibly brilliant and really funny and very sharp. He's no dummy, and I recommend anything by him. It's good stuff. He's very funny. He will make your belly laughs come aplenty while you're reading him. It's not so serious and all that. Okay, this is a really excellent edition of Jane Austen's minor works, the Oxford Illustrated Jane Austen. And these are the minor works. These include the early, some of her letters, Catherine, Love and Friendship, and some of her Sanditon, of course, which is unfinished. One of her later works, The Watsons, and some of her letters. Very interesting stuff. If you're an Austen completist like me who enjoys Jane Austen's work, you will find this very interesting. If you're not, you might find it kind of dull and whatever. But I always find Austen, whatever she writes, is very interesting, and the way she writes and the way her observation via prose isn't just. She's like a funny and kind doctor who has a little bit of a cruel streak, and that's how I'd like to sum her up. I'm sure as a person she was a pretty good person. All right, here's the selected poetry of W.H. Auden, Modern Library Edition. Pretty good. Great poem about, and every time the dictator cries, children die in the streets. And good stuff. Was that Auden or was that someone else? I think it was Auden. And if I got him confused with someone else, I apologize. But I think that line is from Auden. Maybe that's from the other guy I'm trying to think of right now. I'll think of it later. All right, here's a book that I have that I have not read yet. Alan Paton and The Cry of the Beloved Country. And this is, of course, about a novel about South Africa. And that's all I know about it. I've heard good things about it, and I'd like to get around to reading it, but I have not yet done so. So I look forward to it. Next up, another Plutarch. I love Plutarch. The Makers of Rome. Kind of like this painting by Tiepolo, however you say his name. Great painter. Italian. And basically, this goes from Coriolanus all the way to Mark Antony. And it has lives of various people like Tiberius Gracchus, the Gracchi, Gaius and Tiberius, and how the grasping, greedy senatorial class murdered them. Okay, next up. Gotta get the dust off. It's not that much. The Revolt of the Angels by Anatole France. And I haven't read this, so I look forward to reading it. I've heard good things about it. It's a Modern Library edition, pretty slim. I think this is from 1920 or 30. Hold on, I'm going to find out because I'm interested myself. If I may be so self-indulgent. Let's see. Ooh, 1914. World War I, folks. All right, here's a guy. This guy was born in the same state that I was. And you wouldn't know it from his worldly poetry that embraces everything from the Provençal poets to Chinese poetry. Oh, no, he was actually born in Idaho, but he lived in Indiana. And he briefly taught at Wabash College in Crawfordsville, Indiana. That's very close to where I was born, and I'm not going to mention where I was born because I don't want to impugn it. There he is. Look at him. Ezra Pound, Early Writings, Poems and Prose. And this is a valuable volume. The prose is just as good as the poems. And that's saying something. Because Pound really touched into something different and created something that was really never, in my opinion, in my view, really never experienced before in American poetry. He really changed the game. And I can't praise him enough for his bravery. All right, next up, got a funny story about this one. It's a great book. Of course, everybody knows. Lev Tolstoy's Anna Karenina. And she looks kind of like giving you a come hither look on this painting. Like, hey, baby. That painting is, of course, by Yaroshenko. Portrait of an Unknown Woman. Yeah, you better keep her nameless. Of course, Vronsky loves horses. Anna falls in love with him, but she's married to Karenina. And it's a very, very sad book. But it opens with one of the best opening lines ever. All happy families are happy in the same way, and all unhappy families are unhappy in different ways. But I have a funny story about this, a personal story, if I may be so self-indulgent again. I was visiting a friend in Montana, and he was busy working one day. And this was when I was younger, and I was staying at his father's house along with him. And his father got up one morning and said, hey, let's go to breakfast. And so, silly me, being the bookish guy I was, just grabbed the Tolstoy book and, took it along. And we were going to eat breakfast at a Greasy Spoon. And Greasy Spoons in some areas are great places to have breakfast. And so I'm sitting there, and this man is in the legal profession, but he was also he's a bon vivant, very smart. He had a massive collection of books. He was very well read, very intelligent, and also very acerbic, had a great sense of humor. Acerbic humor is the kind of humor I like. But I like other kinds of humor too, but acerbic humor is up there. And we were sitting down at this Greasy Spoon getting ready to eat dinner, and I got this Tolstoy sitting in front of me. And he looks at me and he's like, he said my name and he goes, why are you bringing such a weighty tome to a Greasy Spoon where you and I are going to enjoy breakfast and chat and talk? You're my son's friend. And, there's no need to carry that. Is it some kind of protective thing for you? An icon to keep you safe? And I go, no, it was just automatic. I just did it without thinking. And he's like, you sure did. And, he poked me about it, but he wasn't cruel about it. He was a very charming man. And I'll never forget. That was a very enlightening moment on how not to forget the moment. And I'll always remember that, and I'll always remember his wit and charm. He's a very, 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 he was a brilliant man, and he was a good man. And that's all I need to say. I could say a lot more. All praise, of course. Okay, next up is an excellent, and very, people talk about Machiavelli, but Philippe de Comines, you don't pronounce it, of course. The memoirs, the reign of Louis XI, the Spider King, they called him. And this history is excellent. It's very good, and it's very, it talks about getting rid of people, and offhand in an offhand fashion, as if it's the right, the appropriate thing to do, and very sage and all that stuff. It's just an outstanding book. I mean, it's engrossing. It's very meticulous about the history. This guy was an insider. And he was in the court of Louis XI, and he was an advisor. So he knew all the dirty doings that was going on, and he wrote about them. And some of the stuff that went on, you're like, wow. So I really highly recommend this book. And I also highly recommend the Penguin. I'm going to tell you, they really do well with the stuff they put on the covers. The artwork is just awesome. But this book, I'm telling you, you'll love it. You'll love it. It's much better. It's actually better because Comines was a better writer than Machiavelli, if I must say. It's an excellent book. Okay, next up is another Anatole France, Penguin Island. And I have not gotten around to this one. It's supposed to be a very good book. It's a futuristic book, of course. A utopian novel, I believe. I could be wrong because I have not read it. And that's all I'm going to say about that one. Next up, E.M. Forster, A Passage to India. I had to read this book for a university course. And, some of the other E.M. Forster work I like. But A Passage to India was a little bit too Englishman in India and looking down and kind of... it wasn't as... here we get the blurb. Forster's finest novel. It is a modernist classic, the work of a very great writer. Of course, Malcolm Bradbury would write that. I find it to be a kind of a dud. I didn't find it interesting at all. The characters were not likable at all, even though Forster was trying to present them as such. All right, next up is a Life of Turgenev, The Man, His Art, and His Age by Evram Yarmolinsky, and it's a very good book and a fair book. Turgenev often gets a lot of heat. Of course, Dostoevsky had a ton of contempt for him, even though he used to write letters to him praising him. But then he, in The Devils or The Possessed or The Demons, however they translate it, he basically sends him up as Karamazov and talking about his literary legacy, and it's probably one of the funniest pieces in Dostoevsky's work, besides The Village of Stepan Chirikovo, of course. But this Turgenev mini biography, The Man, His Art, and His Age, is very good. It's a very good overview of the times and Turgenev and his influence and then the new thing that he brought to Russian literature. And it's valuable. Okay, next up is another book that I have yet to read. Jules Verne, Journey to the Center of the Earth. And, I might get around to reading this, but I'm not going to rush to it because, I might give this to, somebody that might like it more than me. Who knows? All right, and then I'm going to go over. I got time. I'm going to do 3 more, but the next book is a set. It's a 2-volume set of the Paston Letters, written between 1424 and 1505. And these are very valuable historical documents. The Paston Letters are letters between people, to Sir John Paston and the Paston family, writing letters to each other during an 80-year period, starting with the reign of, is this volume 1 or 2? Oh, this is volume 2. Starting with the reign of, I believe, King Richard. And it's all about the court intrigues and stuff like that, because they were insiders. And these are incredible historical documents. Some of the stories within these and some of the letters are very interesting. I highly recommend this. And I believe this set is hold on. It's an Everyman set. and it's very well done. Look at this. I like this. Between the reigns of Henry VI, the king that went mad, Edward IV, Richard III, of course, of infamy, and basically Henry VII, who was just as dirty as Richard III, but we won't go into that. And when I say dirty, I mean just as evil and machinating and willing to kill people to get up. These are very excellent. You get to see the people in the times reacting to immense historical events. The death of Henry VI, going wild and leaving, basically abdicating his throne in essence, without officially abdicating, and going mad, and then just being killed, and and then other people taking his place, and then all the way to Richard III. And it's just interesting stuff. Okay, one of my favorite writers, Tobias Smollett, The Expedition of Humphrey Clinker. This is an epistolary novel, meaning that the incidents in a novel are embedded in letters from characters to other characters. And this is one of the funniest novels I've ever written. And William Thackeray, using this blurb in the back, William Thackeray, who knows humor and who knows how to write funny books, said it's the most laughable story that has ever been written since the goodly art of novel writing began. And this is an excellent, excellent book, and I highly recommend it. It is a riot. You will enjoy it. I don't care how prickly and stuffy you are. It will force a laugh out of you. It will. Trust me. There's so much funny stuff in it. There's one scene, but I'm not going to tell you about it because it's just so funny. Okay, now this is a great small novel by Robert Louis Stevenson. The Master of Ballantrae. And I'm going to tell you, Stevenson was a great writer. He wrote well. And, you don't have to take it from me. Even Henry James used to praise the style of Stevenson. He used to praise it to the skies and say the guy cuts diamonds as he writes. And I'm going to tell you, he really knows what to do. It's a great work. And that's all I'm going to say. It's very interesting. A lot of intrigue. Okay, that sums it up for today, folks. Thanks for your patience with me. On some of the corrections and stuff, I've on some of these books, like Lucretius, I've read that twice, and I know a lot about it, and I have so much information on it that a lot of times I don't know what this. I'm so crammed that I want to go to the next book and stuff like that, and I get kind of stopped up. So I apologize for that, and I make comments on the videos on YouTube. I comment on some of the corrections. Like, of course, Lucretius's major influence was Epicurus. He even mentions the swerve in the body of the work. The little swerve that causes the vicissitudes that are, that make our lives not a deterministic life. It's not deterministic. Accidents happen, stuff like that. Randomness. And I thank you for your patience, and have a great day, folks.